Hey everybody, I just finished another book in the Slappyworld series. This is Slappy and Dreamland. So I've actually read all but like one Slappyworld book. I do plan on going back and reading like the ones that I haven't done reviews for on YouTube, so kind of stay tuned for that. So there are quite a few, except the ones I read like recently that I can remember pretty good. But yeah, this one was another one knocked out. This was a buddy read with a good friend of mine, and it was really fun. I had a lot of fun with this one. I think Slappyworld is pretty notorious for the endings being pretty bad, and I'm going to go and cut to the chase. The ending in this one sucked. I kind of thought about it for a little bit, like did I like it or did I love it? I didn't like it at the beginning, but there's more to it as we go on. I'll talk more about it. Let's start with the cover. This is an amazing cover. Brandon Dorman done a great job on this one. I think it's one of the best in the Slappyworld series, or Brandon Dorman, period. I think I'd be freaked out if I was a little younger and I seen this. So yeah. But I would be very curious to see what Tim Jacobus could do with this. You know, like Slappy under a bed. That's nightmare fuel. So yeah. The story itself is about this guy named Richard who doesn't have a lot of friends, and he receives Slappy for his 12th birthday. And he basically talks with Slappy, hangs out with Slappy, and he's basically his only friend. His mom is going to work, and she invites Richard to a take your kid to work day thing. And she's a sleep analysis person, and he refuses to go unless he can bring Slappy. He brings Slappy, and he asks his mom, can she hook him up to the machine that like does a sleep analysis thing, like where you put the probes in your head and all that. She does, and she's freaked out to see that he actually has brain activity. She thinks it's like a fluke in the machine, you know, doesn't really pay much attention to it. And yeah, they're on their way home. After this, Richard has his very first dream, or nightmare. And the nightmare is basically Slappy coming out of a closet or coming out from under the bed, one of the two, and biting him on the arm. He wakes up, he has a bite on his arm. A couple nights later, he has another dream where Slappy is dressed as a nurse or something and electrocutes Richard by putting probes on his head. And the next day he wakes up, his hair's standing up. We learned that Willow, which is his cousin, is coming to stay with him. And this part kind of was really weird because they talk about like not getting along with Willow. And Willow only does like one thing from what I remember that's relatively bad, and that's just make fun of his pajamas. So yeah. Toughen up there, Richard. Like, come on. But yeah, she comes by, and we learn that Willow is having nightmares about Slappy too, and we don't know why. And we don't know why. Her nightmare about Slappy was they're on this boat or on a bus, and Slappy is the driver, and he's driving recklessly and all that. I immediately pictured the Nightmare on Elm Street scene with Freddy driving the school bus. I remember a little bit about the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and there's a lot of inspiration here. In fact, the thing where he dresses as a nurse, I think that happens in the movies too. I really need to rewatch them though, because I'm not a Nightmare on Elm Street expert or anything like that. So yeah, definitely need to read those. We learned that the kids are doing this mural for the school or whatever, and they both have the same dream where Slappy comes in and controls them to draw his face on this mural. And they go to school the next day, and sure enough, this happens. Richard gets invited to a birthday party, and the girl that invites him wants him to come and bring Slappy with him and do a talent act. You can't have a Slappy book without a talent show or whatever. And basically, Slappy comes to life. He puts everybody to sleep, like he hypnotizes them, and then wrecks the cake, rips the presents up, all this great stuff. There's a scene where Richard falls asleep in class, and Slappy tries to make him eat a frog that they're going to dissect, and it's like covered with formaldehyde, however you say that. So yeah. And yeah, I mean, that I'm pretty sure that'll really hurt you. But that dream there kind of didn't make a lot of sense because nothing really happens in it. Like it was like a fake out like dream sequence because the frog does disappear, but it's like ends up being on the floor. I guess Stein didn't really want to go and like make, kids read about kids eating dead frogs. I don't know. But yeah, this book had a very weird pattern where you have a dream sequence, something bad happens with Slappy, and it just gets more random and random, in my opinion. You have the Merle at the school, you have in the sleep study place, you have the zoo, you have a birthday party. The zoo scene is actually pretty tense too. Slappy basically leads a group of kids to this tiger den thing, and these tigers like literally are about to eat these kids until something happens. So yeah, based on the like danger alone, I thought this book was pretty good. And I think that helps with this. I didn't mention it yet, but this book also gave me a nightmare, which I don't get nightmares very often. And when I do, I tend to remember a good bit of them. And the one I had was very, very memorable. And yeah, so bonus points for that. I'm all for a good nightmare that's not realistic. When you get older, you have very sad nightmares where you just like lose your job or something, But yeah, I was all for this. This book was okay. I am going to give it kind of a high rating just basically because of the danger involved in it. Like there's a few instances where these kids could have gotten, ended, like being eaten by a tiger and eating a poisonous frog, I thought that was pretty good. The biggest issues I had with this book was the randomness. Like it felt like and I felt like I said this before, it felt like a bunch of random Slappy scenes that Stein came up with and he just put them all in one story. And I feel like that happens with a lot of these Slappyworld books. Like Stein just has a ton of ideas for Slappy and he just doesn't know how to really execute the ones that he wants. But yeah, this one was okay. This wasn't the best Slappy book in the series. I really enjoyed like My Best Friend Slappy in the Slappyworld series. There's a few other Ghosts of Slappy. I liked it. This one was good. I am going to give it a high rating, like I said. So this one wasn't a bad one. It was just really random. And it's really hard to rate these Slappy books because they're all kind of the same for the most part. This one did have a unique idea where he could go in dreams. But the one thing that I would have changed about this book was I wouldn't have had it as a Slappy thing. Just imagine like a new monster that can go into dreams, or like maybe this is a sequel to the It's Only a Nightmare book from the Give Yourself Goosebumps. I read that a couple years ago, but I don't remember anything about it, so I'll probably have to reread it. But yeah, like why did it have to be Slappy? It could have been a different monster in general, but Slappy worked here. It was fine. I also want to point out there is this thing like in the beginning of the book where Slappy is in this, in the dream world or whatever, and he talks about he walks and he stalks or whatever. And I thought I actually got like a little bit of a fun little Easter egg moment because that's like the tagline for one of the original books. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, Slappy in Dreamland, I'd probably give it like a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was good, but again, very random. The randomness really mugged it down from being a really good Slappy book. And what helped was the danger of all of the weird things towards the end. At the end of the day, though, there are a lot of Slappy stuff that just, was just Slappy wrecking things or getting somebody else in trouble or something. The biggest disappointment for this book was not even the randomness, but the ending. The ending was absolutely terrible. I hated it. It came out of nowhere. When I was reading this, I thought this book was 128 pages. It's only like 121. So when I got to that part, I thought there was more to the book, but no, it just ends with an epilogue. And I was like, okay. So, yeah. The way this thing ends, Richard's not a bad guy, so it doesn't really feel warranted, I feel like that could have happened to somebody else, but yeah, this was fine. I think it was slightly above average, and I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's kind of a low 4 out of 5 stars, but yeah, Slappy and Dreamland, 4 out of 5 stars from you guys. What did you guys think about Slappy and Dreamland? Please let me know in the comments below. Thank you. Bye-bye.